thus far. Just it'll probably get a lot of repetition, I imagine. But
We've heard a lot about the swimming hole.
oh, okay, yeah, that's a main thing in Townsend.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot about skating on the VFW pond.
Yeah.
What else? I feel like those have been the main,
Well, if I get too repetitious, let me know, and I'll try to talk about something different. Because as I went thinking about it, there's a lot of things that have changed, which I'd like you guys to know, kind of what it was like back then. So.
All right. And I will just have you clap your hands.
Can you introduce yourself, including your full name, as well as how long you've lived here in Townsend?
All right. Hi, I'm John Barrett. I right now live at 38 Highland Street, but I grew up at 13 Smith Street in Townsend. In fact, my parents built the house that we first lived in, and I was born in Fitchburg at Burbank Hospital, back when it was a hospital. And parents built the house. We lived there for a couple years. Then we moved to Connecticut, where my brother was born. And then we came back to Townsend about 1959. And I've been here ever since, except for 4 years at UMass, but I was still living at home. And 4 years where my wife and I were first married, we bought a house in Fitchburg. But then we moved back to start our family in Townsend in 1983. Thereabouts.
What does Townsend mean to you?
That's a kind of strange. Well, you can tell just from my reaction that I love the town, and it was a great place to grow up, and it's changed, but I think a lot of change has been for the better. Some of the changes, maybe not so much. I kind of much of the physical stuff is still there. But the way we were has changed. I can remember, this predates me, but I can remember my uncle talking about, because he grew up in Townsend too, sitting on the porch at Tenney's grocery store, which I don't know if you know where Tenney's was, but it's where John Forrest has his appliance store now. That was the grocery store in the center of Townsend, from probably 1830 to 1960. And he would sit on the porch with his friends, and they'd count the cars going by. I don't think they even had signals at the intersection back then. But so it's changed. But so there's a lot more traffic, that's for sure. So it's hard to explain, because my wife and I, we raised our kids here. Sadly, they've all had to navigate someplace else. My youngest daughter lives in Lunenburg, so she's pretty close. But they all come back, for the holidays and birthdays and things. So, we can still get the grandkids out on bicycles, riding around, or exploring Howard Park with them, and playing out in the woods like we used to do.
What are some other ways the town has changed when you were young?
Well, one thing I thought about was communications. When I was a kid, I can remember for the telephone, you'd dial 0, you'd dial the operator, and the operator would come on and say, "Number, please," and you would then give her the number, and it was a 3-digit number, because there were probably not more than 1,000 phones in Townsend. And you'd say, "Operator, please give me a 624," and she would plug you in to that connection. And some people still had party lines back then, and so if you had a party line, somebody else could be listening to the conversation. But I think we actually didn't have a party line at our house. I hope we didn't anyway. But then it advanced. They got rid of the operator that had to connect you, kind of like they used to do on Lassie or, Mayberry, the Andy Griffith Show type of thing. And you just dial 4 numbers. And then, I don't know, maybe sometime in the, I'd say late 80s, maybe you had to dial 597. And now you have to dial the whole, well, actually now we don't even have a landline anymore. We ended up giving it up, so it's just cell phones, because all we were getting was telemarketers on the phone. But, I think another thing that's changed is it doesn't seem like you see kids outside as much as you used to. I mean, we pretty much were outdoors, maybe with an exception for cartoons on Saturday mornings, especially in the wintertime. But, we were outdoors, either playing out in the woods. We used to play Army. We'd get sticks and imagine ourselves as Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett, or we'd. I can remember one time kind of reenacting the war for Italian independence. I'm not sure where we got that from. But must have been something that we got in history, and thought, well, we'll pretend we're Garibaldi or something. And if it wasn't doing that, we'd be playing baseball in the field behind our house, or we'd go up to Fessenden Field behind Spalding. Which, that's one thing I noticed. It seems strange to me. I know the town kind of turned it over to the Little League, and they completely changed the fields around. But I went up there the other day, and they're all padlocked. And I'm like, gee, that seems strange to me, because back in the day, we could just go up there and play, as long as the Little League wasn't playing. But the other thing that we did a lot was going down to the river. And you mentioned earlier the swimming holes. Everybody had their own sort of swimming hole, I'd say. There were some that were, I guess everybody knew when, even my dad, there was a place called the swimming hole, the old swimming hole on the Squannacook in Howard Park. And then up above that, there was Black Rock, where we oftentimes went swimming. And even above that, there was a place called Nature Dam, because there was rocks underneath that looked like it was an old dam, but I think it was just a natural creation, so we called it Nature Dam. And that's, I think, the term my father had for it, too. And even up above that, we had another swimming hole that we called, depending on how private we wanted to be, we called Rainbow Bay, because there was a log a tree that had fallen over and eventually turned into a log, and we just dive off of that. And when you got out to the end of it, and you look down the water, it looked like there was like a rainbow around you, but it was more like a halo, actually. But we called it Rainbow Bay. Somebody else I ran into a while later, many years ago, we were talking about fishing, and that's the other thing we did, swimming and fishing and boating on the river. And he referred to it as Rainbow Bay, but he said it was because of rainbow trout that they caught there. So it's just strange how people have the same experience, but in a little different way.
So you kind of just talked about like certain memories you have, but is there like a specific one that you're most like fond of from Townsend?
There's so many, really. I mean, there were always the holidays, that we had, and everybody, has the Christmas time holidays and 4th of July. Townsend never was really big on celebrating the 4th of July, but there was always the Memorial Day parade, and I was in Boy Scouts, and our scoutmasters were all veterans of World War II. And they would drill us on the common, just like they got drilled. Left, right. And so we were expected in the parade to be in step. I'm not admitting that we always were, but we tried to be, and we had to be in uniform, too. It was shoes and full uniform, But fondest memories, it's, I think just being a kid, And actually, summer seemed to sometimes go slow that you'd be really ready to go back to school at the end of the summer because there wasn't. We kept ourselves pretty much entertained, but there really wasn't a lot to do in Townsend other than, play in the woods, play baseball, football. When we were smaller, kickball, ride our bikes all around town. And as I said before, this was our helmet, and pretty much free range. I can remember I was about 6 or 7 years old. I'd ride my bike down across Brookline Street, Route 13, to a friend's house that lived on School Street, and I wasn't supervised. We just did that. And but one event that we don't have anymore, which was an order of holidays. It wasn't an official holiday, but was opening day of fishing season, and that was almost like a carnival had come to town. Because everybody would get up early before dawn, and sometimes go down to Cliff's Donuts and get some donuts to fortify you, and then go out fishing through all the holes. Because back then, the season was closed until opening day for fishing. So the stock trucks did go around and distribute the fish throughout the river, and everybody in town would go out fishing that day, and you'd run into your friends and sort of compete to see who got the most fish and who got the largest fish, and it was quite an event that sadly they don't have anymore, because now it's an open season all the time. You can go out wherever, and it seems more often what happens is I think they even publish the dates that they're going to stock the river, and people just look that up and then wait for the stock truck and go down there and then go and catch their limit. If you're unemployed or not otherwise unoccupied, you can catch quite a few fish, I think.
Have you ever worked in town, and if so, what was your job?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. My first job basically was as a paper boy for the Fitchburg Sentinel, delivering papers. I think I only had about 24, maybe 30, so it wasn't very far. I had some friends that had 100. But we'd go down to Tenney's. By that time, it was not the grocery store anymore. It was the haberdashery, where they basically sold odds and ends and clothes. And they would drop the papers off there. I'd get my papers on my bike, a coaster bike, no speeds to it, and just ride around the neighborhood delivering papers. The Sentinel was 42 cents a week that the customers paid you, and so if I was lucky, I'd get 8 cents tip, and that's what I got for each paper. So with that money, I oftentimes could go to Cliff's Donuts and buy some donuts for myself and my family, siblings. And as I recall, one donut was about 12 cents, and if you got 2, it was 20, and if you got 3, it was 30, and it went up to maybe about, for a half dozen, it was maybe 72 cents or something like that. So it was a pretty good deal. But my first real job was, other than shoveling, paths and driveways and mowing lawns, was working at Powell Hardware, which is, the hardware store is basically in the same neighborhood. I think there's a quilt store where the old hardware store was on Elm Street, kind of across, right next to the old fire station. That's where the hardware store was. And the owner at the time was Charlie Monahan. And God rest his soul. Charlie's nickname was Cheap Charlie. Because I remember when the minimum wage was $1.75, he paid me $1.35 an hour. But I was glad to have the job because it was a great job. I worked after school. I started my junior year, and would work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 hours when I got out of school, from 3 to 6, and then on Saturdays from I think it was roughly about 8 to 5. And so it wasn't a lot of money, but it definitely gave me some spending money and money to save up for college. And it was a great job. Kind of learned about nails and hardware stuff, paint, and to my surprise, I was able to lift the 94-pound bags of cement. And at that stage in life, I probably weighed about 135 pounds, you know. But I won't say how many more pounds I am now. But then after that, I went to college. Actually worked at New England Business. Almost everybody in Townsend. A lot of my friends worked in chicken farms. Thankfully, I never had that route. Probably tried to avoid it because I know I had asthma when I was a kid. But Charlie kept me busy. And then I worked at New England Business after school. And between semesters at college, oftentimes. And after going to college, actually one year I did an internship where I worked in Fitchburg as a paralegal. And after I got out of college with a degree in political science, I didn't know what you did with a degree in political science. I think most people realized they were going to go to law school, but I didn't know I wanted to do that yet. But I ended up getting a job as a paralegal in Fitchburg, and that led to going to law school, and then getting a job with an attorney in Fitchburg. And when he became a judge, I decided, we were going to open a branch in Townsend. And so I followed through with that plan. So we opened our office, my law office in Townsend in December of 1990. And so we've been doing that ever since. So that's the jobs I've had in Townsend. If you talk about paying jobs, more or less it paid.
Do you have like a memorable experience from your law office in Townsend?
It's hard to say. I can't think of one specific one. I guess one of the crazy things about it is that I've worked with my wife, who's been my paralegal and office manager, otherwise known as my boss. We've, people didn't think you could do it. How can you work with your wife that long, day in and day out? But we've done it. And so I guess that's probably I can't think of a specific episode at work, per se. It kind of all blends in now. I'll probably think of something after this interview's over, but I guess just generally it's been good to be able to help people, and be around in Townsend, so that's I guess I can't think of any big event particularly. I was just arguing at the appeals court last week, probably my last hurrah for that, because you don't get to do, that's the third time I've done it, so you don't get to do it very often, unless you're an appellate attorney. But anyway, that's kind of what's happening at work.
So you talked about going to college and higher education with law school, but what was your schooling experience like here in Townsend?
Well, I think my experience here because I'm an NM grad, class of '73, and I think we had good teachers. I think we had a great school and great coaches. I guess I actually made it to the Honor Society. And one funny incident, somebody just reminded me about this the other day, was we had a Latin teacher. I took Latin and French, and our Latin teacher was Mr. Bannister, and he said, I was making up a test in Latin in the room, and there was an assembly for people being inducted into the National Honor Society, and he said, well, you can stay here and do your makeup test. So I said, okay. And I'm sitting in class doing the makeup test. Nobody else there. You didn't have to have a proctor or anything. Not really easy to cheat in Latin anyways. But all of a sudden I hear someone running down the hall, their keys jingling. And Mr. Bannister, who was kind of stout, come puffing into the room and says, John, hurry up. You got to get down to the assembly. They called your name. So I guess I got inducted into the National Honor Society. But we had some great teachers, one of whom was Pearl Russell. I can't not mention Pearl. She taught my father mathematics back at Spalding, when Spalding was the high school. And she taught me algebra, or tried to anyway. But she did get me to pass, and she was a sweet lady, one of the ladies who I used to shovel her walk and mow her lawn. And she, before she passed at 100 years of age, she established a scholarship, which is available now for students at NM that are going on to study math, because she just loved math. I don't know. For me, I love history, and I think I think I got a good. Maybe it's just because I liked history so much. I sometimes worry that you guys don't get enough history, but maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe sometime we can have a kind of an exchange about historical things, and I don't know how much more questions you've got, but that might let me know when I can segue into the historical stuff that's happening today or this next couple years.
Okay, so our last question is, when Townsend citizens open up their time capsule 50 years from now, what do you hope they will learn from it?
Well, I think right now we're in a kind of a crazy period, I think. And I hope they will learn that, despite the controversies and different opinions, that as Americans, we can always come together and I think do the right thing and try to make the country a good place to live. I think Townsend was a great place to grow up. As I said, we raised our kids here, and I think they will probably recognize that looking at that things have changed a lot. But I'm hoping that they'll realize that some of the core things haven't changed. Sort of your family ties, your friends. To speak of my friends, I still get together with the kids I grew up in the neighborhood. We still go on an annual fishing trip and have an annual get-together we call the Yeehaw, where you guys aren't old enough to attend, but there is some consumption. But we generally, it's pretty laid back now, actually, because we're a little bit older than we were back 50 years ago. But so I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully they'll see that people can work together, and for the good of their families and the community, it can be done. So, but so I did want to just mention that we are having some historical observations in the next month or so, and April 19th we're going to recreate the Townsend Minutemen's March to Concord when they received the alarm that the regulars, the ministerial troops, were out trying to seize the stores of ammunition in Concord. And so I hope you guys, I know you guys are all busy, but hopefully some of you can join us at the reenactment of that march to Concord. And that's April 19th at 11 o'clock, starting at the Town Common.
Nice. Great.
Yeah, that's all we have
Thank
for
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.